All right. Hi, everyone. I am Andrew, aka Brahma Mindgasms, for the purposes of this video. And I'm going to start talking about this book I recently read on Indian slash Hindu philosophy called Sadhana, the Realization of Life, and talk about the Hindu concept or the Indian concept and the Hindu god of Brahma, and what I see it to be in this paragraph as being described as the infinite conscious spirit. And this is by a Hindu philosopher and poet who also was an artist in a number of other different ways. It was his name was Rabindranath Tagore. That's what his name was. Anyway, so I'm going to share this paragraph of the book here because you can get it for free on archive.org, like a lot of the books that I discuss. So I'm going to screen share this paragraph here and share my thoughts on it. So here we go. And I wanted to talk about Hinduism and Hindu philosophy and religion because a lot of people don't talk about that very much in the Western world. Where like Christianity has so pervaded our culture in the Western world so much that I want to learn more about other religions. So let's start by getting into Hindu philosophy here. All right. So this is from a section called Soul Consciousness. We've seen that it was the aspiration of ancient India to live and move and have its joy in Brahma, the all-conscious and all-pervading spirit, by extending its field of consciousness over all the world. But that, it may be urged, is an impossible task for any man to achieve. If this extension of consciousness be an outward process, then it is endless. It is like attempting to cross the ocean after ladling out its water. By beginning to try to realize all, one has to end by realizing nothing. I think this is interesting. This is why I called the video Brahma's the infinite conscious spirit. And it's interesting because it's similar to, but also different from other religions and concepts of gods. But I think it's interesting. I want to learn more about Hinduism because it's a polytheistic religion, unlike all three of the most major Abrahamic monotheistic religions across the world: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And I think this is an interesting concept of Brahma. So the aspiration of ancient India was to live and move and have its joy in Brahma. So he describes Brahma here as the all-conscious and all-pervading spirit, and that it extends its fields of consciousness all over the world, but it's impossible for man to achieve the consciousness of Brahma because he says it is an endless conscious spirit. So I substituted the word endless for infinite because it seems like that's what he's talking about here, and it's an easier way to understand it. This idea of a conscious infinite God that we see in many other religions, including monotheistic religions like the three major Abrahamic ones I mentioned, such as Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, right? So it's the idea of Brahma is an infinite conscious spirit, but Brahma, I looked this up too, is also the Hindu creator god. So perhaps similar to the idea of the Christian God or at the top of the hierarchy. I don't know that much about Hinduism, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but it sounds like that is what's being described. So I think that's really interesting. Anyway, also, so it's impossible for man to extend his consciousness in the same way as Brahma because he is not the infinite conscious spirit. But it sounds like he's saying we can access Brahma which is like the force, the creative force of the universe, somewhat. And if I'm understanding the concept of Brahma correctly, and it seems like these Indian or Hindu gods are less anthropomorphized, perhaps, than those in the major monotheistic religions. Like, as you saw in that picture there, the picture of Brahma is of a humanoid-looking god with 4 or multiple arms and multiple faces too, which is also very interesting and different because it's somewhat anthropomorphic, but less so than how much the Christian God in particular and the Jewish God are anthropomorphized so much. I was going to say Islam, but of course it's forbidden to depict Allah or the God of Islam. Anyway, so it's impossible for man to achieve the task of basically being this all-pervading, endless conscious spirit that Brahma is. If this extension of consciousness be an outward process, then it is endless. So the Brahma, or the infinite consciousness, extends outward endlessly. So it extends outward. It's infinitely extending outward. So I like this metaphor too. If a man tries to access Brahma, or to be Brahma anyway, it is like I guess what he's saying is it's impossible for a man to extend his consciousness in the same way as Brahma, and it's like attempting to cross the ocean after lading out its water. Like, you can start, it sounds like he's basically saying you can only ever start to access it, but all you can do is take a ladle of water out of the ocean, and you're never going to refill the ocean that way, because it's just too massive for you to be able to accomplish that. So I think that's an interesting metaphor too. Like, this idea of an infinite God is, because it's infinite and so massive, it's basically impossible for us to understand, because we can only possibly scratch the surface of this infinite conscious spirit. Okay, so then he says, by beginning to realize all, one has to end by realizing nothing. That's the most interesting part of this, because it gets into the religious paradox, which I used to find annoying, but I find fascinating now from a philosophical and theological or religious perspective. By beginning to try to realize all, one has to end by realizing nothing. So the paradox in there comes in, where what I think the message is that he's trying to convey is that the paradox that to realize the infinite, you have to realize that the infinite is paradoxically also nothing, or that, like, I say this mantra when I meditate sometimes: nothing is everything and everything is nothing, which is obviously a paradox. But I think it's interesting because like you said, you can, by beginning to try to realize all, one has to end by realizing nothing. So you can only contemplate the infinite if you stop trying to contemplate that it is infinite, and just try to feel the all-conscious and all-pervading spirit of Brahma. And it's like kind of this, I'm reminded of this in Buddhist meditation, for example, too, that you have to, like, try to not try. You can only achieve your goal by not trying to do it directly, or not trying to think about it as a whole. So you can only contemplate the infinite and your place in the infinite conscious spirit by realizing that you yourself are nothing in comparison to infinity, which is humbling as well, I think, obviously, right? So yeah, that's that paragraph that I just wanted to briefly discuss there, and starting another series on a philosophy book here. And like I said, I wanted to explore Hinduism and Hindu/Indian philosophy more in my journey to learn more about various religions throughout the world, more about a lot of Christianity, lately, but many other religions as well, because they all have their pros and cons in my opinion. And I've also, of course, started talking about the Guide for the Perplexed, which is by the Jewish philosopher Maimonides, who I think he was alive in in medieval times rather. But yeah, anyway, so check that out as well. And I will continue making more videos on this book and continue this series. It's a pretty short one, so probably won't have anywhere near as many videos uh, as the number I've made for Slavoj Žižek's Less Than Nothing, which was my last solo philosophy video, or Michel Foucault's History of Sexuality, for example. But anyway, yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments of this little exploration of the concept and God of Brahma in Hinduism and Indian philosophy. And yeah, look forward to more videos on this book, Sadhana, The Realization of Life by Rabindranath Tagore. I remembered his name. Good for me. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Share this everywhere. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Like I mentioned, my last philosophy one was on Slavoj Žižek's Less Than Nothing, and he's basically obliterating the false Kantian arguments of the infamous Nazi Heinrich Himmler. So check that out too. That a lot of people seem to like that one. And for my next one, I think either tomorrow, I'm going to do a podcast with my friend Dusty, who I often talk with about, of course, George Orwell's famous book called Animal Farm. And we'll talk about, Stalinism and communism and totalitarianism and all that stuff that George Orwell clearly criticizes in that book. So that should be really fun. So look forward to that. So I'm either going to do that one next, or I think I might talk about a clip of the Israeli historian Yuval Noah Harari, who I've talked about before. And I've read all three of his books, including his first one, Sapiens. And it's a video in which he speculates about whether the advent of AI will lead to the creation of a new religion based on AI. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to do that podcast or that solo video next, but check them out either way. And yeah, share these Mindgasms everywhere. Tell all your friends, share it everywhere. Smash that like button. Be lovingly smash it and finger it like you are fingering the magic, loving, infinite God of Brahma. And yeah, thanks everyone again. Check out my Patreon page, of course. Link is in the description of the video as always. And like I always say, most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And a lot of religions are interesting. Hinduism is pretty interesting so far too. It's interesting to learn about it, and let's learn more about it. And I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about it for a start. All right. And let me know if you know more about Hinduism in the comments, and let me know your thoughts about this concept of Brahma. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What more do you know about it? All that kind of stuff. All right. Thanks again, everyone, and adios until next time.